Your question about are we voting for a human being or not is I actually think the core one, Andrew, because if we're voting for a human being and the messenger matters, then this decision should be made already. Where if you watch that debate, you can't have that nominee. He's going to lose. And what should happen is Joe Biden, in any other scenario, the president who's unfit to lead, let's call it that, should say, hey, my delegates, you're loyal to me. You should be loyal to my vice president right now. I'm going to step aside. We'll nominate another vice president, but I'm going to nominate this new president.
Or you should make your own determination. I'm stepping aside.
Yeah. And that's very. So what happens is if they free up, if those delegates free up, they're free to pick anybody, but they're loyal to Joe, and they'll probably stay that way. That mutiny thing, I guess it's not impossible, but very, very difficult. Those are Democratic diehards, they'll go to Kamala, but they won't all go to Kamala at the convention.
Well, they would go to Kamala if Joe said go to Kamala.
Right, but some would probably split. Some would split. Not all of them. The vast majority would still go to Joe.
Well, if Joe said, I think there's a real chance if Joe steps aside, Joe says it's for the party to decide. I'm not clear that he's going to put his weight behind Kamala in that way.
And your problem with Kamala is that her numbers are worse than Joe, as is. So then it does become a people election, and we lose that one too. So there is a world where he can pledge them to an open like convention and craziness. You can not pledge them, let them free. Chaos would ensue.
So first, let's try and handicap. Do you think that he does step aside either because he has a change of heart or because he's pressured to do so prior to the convention? The convention's in August. But I mean, the way this process unfolds, though, is like you kind of need him to do it quick.
Yeah.
Like he needs to do it. If he's going to do it, he needs to do it pronto. So what do you think is going to happen? Do you think he steps aside or no?
No, I think we have Weekend at Bernie's from here on out. I think I'm just seeing like this is what like because what happened is like Gavin Newsom's like no, absolutely he's come out and said like it's ridiculous to think Joe Biden's our nominee. Barack Obama, Reid Hoffman, the big donor, emailed all the Democrats. I got this email, or I got to forward it to me, and I saw it on Twitter. The big donor, they got the biggest donors coming out and saying Joe's our guy. He's going to be fine. They're going to pretend this didn't happen. It's one bad night and hope for the best. That's what I think.
So one of my principles in life now, Zach, is never underestimate the dysfunction of the Democratic Party. And so there's a big part of me that agrees with you and thinks that that Joe does not drop out, and everyone grits their teeth and says it was just a bad debate, which in my opinion is false. But I do have a vision of Joe Biden giving an emotional speech and stepping aside, and I hope that comes to pass. I mean, not because I don't respect Joe Biden as a human being. I mean, that would actually be the pinnacle of his public service for him to give that speech.
Yes, do what RBG did not do.
Yes, and I hold out hope. One thing I will say, too, is that some of the people that are making public statements saying Joe are privately making plans to be his replacement.
I hold out hope, too.
So there is something happening, and the press is a key component of the Democratic machine, and if the press turns on you in this way, it's very hard for me to imagine the campaign thinking it can be successful. There are a lot of donors that are influenced by the press. So I'm going to be somewhat optimistic and say, like, I believe that Joe does drop out.
I love it.
Sometime. Now but this goes against the rule I just said, which is never underestimate the dysfunction of the Democratic Party, which would mean he doesn't drop out. So I'm torn on this, but I'm going to go on the optimistic side and say he drops out.
I hope so. I hope there's a dogfight at the convention. That'd be great. I mean, it will be dark because it won't be Democratic. You will have a nominee that was not elected in any shape or form, unless.
Hey man, you'd rather have 4,000 people choose than one person choose. If that one person,
that's true. You'd rather have
clinging to office. And look, I don't love this process either. I mean, obviously, we hope there was a genuine primary. One reason why I believe Joe drops out too is because there's that principle that whatever the most dramatic thing is will happen.
Entertainment play.
I mean, It's certainly dramatic to have your 81-year-old leading you on a futile campaign and a death march. I mean, that's dramatic, but it's also dramatic to have like a contested convention and the rest of it. And I'm in the camp too. I got asked, like, can a Democrat who's not Joe Biden win? It's like, of course they can. I mean, if you take age off the table, all of a sudden people are faced with Trump and be like, oh, I don't really like that guy. You know,
Look at
um, he's got like a minus 12% favorability. I think he's something like 42-54, something along those lines.
look at the down ballot numbers. Look at the down ballot. Look at the
Yeah, the down
races.
ballot numbers.
Like,
It's like all of a sudden, by the way, a bunch of senators and members of Congress and maybe some statewide candidates would rejoice because, like, I don't have a freaking 81-year-old anchor weighing me down.
you've got Dems still winning with Joe at top of the ticket, and Joe's losing to Trump, but the Dem is winning below him. And so it's clearly a Joe problem.
It's a Joe problem. People are not fans of Trump. So if you were to replace Joe, I think that there's a massive uplift. And by the way, you still have 3 or 4 months to introduce whoever the heck the American people. And can you imagine the press coverage of the new nominees where they would be so fawning? It would just be like, this person walks on water. This person's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, we've been saved. Like, you know, like, it would be so that I hope. Okay, so number one, the threshold issue is, like, does Joe step aside? And it can go both ways. But for the sake of this conversation, let's say he does step aside, because if he doesn't step aside, we all know what's going to happen. So if he does step aside, then you have. Oh, and one other thing that could prompt him to step aside is someone raising their hand and saying, like, you know, I'm going to contest this.
Yes.
I'm running, or I'm going to challenge at the convention. I think that him stepping aside precedes like the Gavin Newsom declaration or whatever the heck. I do think some of that stuff is happening behind the scenes. So you would have a clutch of candidates, maybe half a dozen, who each declare, and then they would jockey for the 4,000 delegates or so. And then there are some super delegates who essentially consist of the electeds who get to vote if there's no majority winner in the first round. So it would be one of the most fascinating accelerated campaigns we've ever seen,
Yeah.
where all of a sudden you'd have people declaring for Newsom, declaring for Pritzker, declaring for Kamala. Like, it would be like,
It'd be
you know,
really
these people would be the
entertaining.
most popular people in the country, and it would be actually very, very enthralling. Like, you know, seeing various people come out. It would be the most drama we've ever seen.
Yep. And to be fair, if these folks that they're nominating are elected officials and they still have to be elected as president, I think there's still a good case for democracy here. I think if you put it this way, if Joe Biden, like, God forbid, not saying this, don't take this, don't cut this, make it look like an asshole, but if God forbid Joe Biden actually passed away,
or just not passed away, it was just incapacitated,
whatever it is, and Kamala was the now presumptive nominee, you'd have a contested convention. And I would argue that the Democrats should have one, because Kamala is not polling anywhere near high enough.
They should have had a real primary 5 months ago, but yeah, they should have a contested primary a convention. Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Please do hit like and subscribe, and hit that bell if you want to be notified every time a new episode drops. Thank you.